This video is about this sovereign citizen infiltration list. I'm going to go over some of the names in it. However, I don't know who all the names are. I've called out some names in the past in different videos, and I don't know if all are operatives or not. I don't know who made this or what the purpose of this list is, if I'm honest. So, moving forward, I'm going to talk about Wexit and Peter Downing, but we can see that through Norman Traversy and Kellyanne Wolf, there's a blue line that connects to Pat King and works its way toward Wexit and Peter Downing. Then, moving down here, we can see another line that stems from Kellyanne Wolf and goes down to Peter Downing and Wexit once again. And within this branch, there's a lot of familiar names of people that I've called out in other videos, such as Danny Bulford. There's Bridget Belton on here, Tom Quiggin, Chris Barber, Tom Marazzo, and some trucking companies beneath. And as well, I want to say that Jason LaFacci, or Jason LaFace, is on this list as well. And he's promoting the upcoming Unity events, first two letters being UN. And as well, he's been seen wearing Soldiers of Odin clothes and was a member of Derek Sloan's Ontario party. So, some of these people also as well are on multiple spots in the list as well. So again, I don't know the purpose of this list, and I don't know what the connections in this list illustrate either. So, Wexit. The Wexit founders are hell-bent on establishing the narrative that they're an anti-globalist party from the West. It should come as no surprise that Peter Downing and company are, as of late, reposting corporate news articles written by Diane Francis to their social media. Diane Francis's husband is media mogul Conrad Black, and Peter Downing is the founder of Wexit and former RCMP. It says Diane Francis is an American-born propagandist who is the editor of Canada's National Post magazine since the late 90s, and National Post became a subsidiary of the US-owned Post Media during the time of the Harper government. So the Atlantic Council is a Ukrainian-tied globalist organization known for interfering in the electoral process throughout the Americas and Europe. Diane Francis sits on the board of the Atlantic Council, by the way. And to give you an example of this place, it was the Atlantic Council founded CrowdStrike, which was the firm that was actually used to cover up the source of the DNC Clinton emails in the U.S. 2016 presidential election. And the Atlantic Council is a globalist swamp think tank formed in 1961, and it brings together George Soros, the Clintons, and leading defense contractors, powerful lobbying firms with notoriously biased media outlets such as CNN and Reuters, all under the same umbrella. The council is funded by Burisma, which is a Ukrainian energy company that paid Joe Biden's son Hunter $83,000 a month to serve as a consultant. And George Soros is a major financer of the Atlantic Council. So we can see that Soros indirectly funds Wexit, which is through Diane Francis's articles, as we can see that link, and being that she sits on the board of the Atlantic Council. I think that this is strange for sure, and that definitely defies the whole left and right paradigm, as we can see a quote-unquote right-wing organization like Wexit being funded by Soros. So, moving forward, I'm going to talk about Liberty and Norbert and Odessa Orlowitz. We can see that essentially they're connected to Mounties for Freedom, which is what Daniel Bulford is associated with. And then you can see this circle around to Tanya Gaw in Action for Canada. She's the head of Action for Canada, and this goes around to Kevin J. Johnson, who has a span of his own connections. And going the opposite direction from Action for Canada, we see they're tied to Rocco Galati, which leads his way right back to Kellyanne Wolf over there. So, this is an article on Canuck Law that came out in July of 2021, so some of the information might be a little bit dated. There would be probably more up-to-date articles, and you can see Canuck Law for that. Action for Canada is based out of BC, and they claim to have been fundraising a lawsuit for almost a year. And in January 2021, they reached 45% of the goal to sue the BC government. And apparently they then, at this time, state that they're 83% of the way there, and there's no mention of the money, of the amount of money needed, as it's just given as a percent. And back in September 2020, they claimed to have raised over $30,000. It's strange to see that nobody asked where the donations went, of course. What an offer! If you donate to Odessa Orlowitz, she'll give 50% to Tanya at Action for Canada for the lawsuit that they are not filing. 25% will go to Rocco Galati's cases, which are going nowhere and still have gone nowhere. She'll keep 25%. What a lovely deal. So Odessa Monroe is her birth name. She was born in Vancouver, and she's known for some small roles in Freddy vs. Jason, Saving Silverman, and the TV show Dark Angel. Her husband, Norbert Orlowitz, digital entrepreneur and marketing expert. Many entrepreneurs and business professionals are looking for new solutions and opportunities to grow their business, their networks, and their net worth. My focus is on specific solutions to business development, expanding your network, and building your net worth. So essentially it seems like he is a marketing expert with a specific focus on the internet and tech. So moving back to the Sovereign Citizen Infiltration list, I'm going to go down and show you what's called the Hive Marketing Network. It comes down through this blue line here, which leads its way from Norman Traversy. And Norman Traversy, down this blue line, comes to Chris Sakosha, otherwise known as Chris Sky. And he's got a web of connections that go to private on-demand education, Rob Carbone, Mothers Against Distancing, and then as well this whole Hive network over here, which I'm going to be talking about very briefly. It says, we have a synergized team of collective minds to create an adaptable and fluid business development lifecycle. This unique approach allows us to rapidly capitalize on opportunities, moving problems and ideas through our discovery, design, and development phases. Our broad industry experience, network of relationships, and innovative solutions allow our team to ensure that our partners have state-of-the-art tools at their fingertips, deliver innovative ideas and strategic alignments that support creativity. Working together, we will maximize on the full potential of the opportunity. So I think that these are some interesting symbols here. Under B linked here, we see what looks like two hexagons linked together, and it almost looks like it's in the shape of an Ouroboros, which is a snake eating its tail, which represents creation or reincarnation. This is again another hexagon. And then we see something in the colors of what look like a bee. And typically speaking, to give an example, here's what I can think of offhand. In the Johnny Depp trial, he's actually wearing a pin on his suit for a bee, which illustrates the fact that he is following a queen, or he is some sort of follower, as a beehive needs a queen to function. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the symbolism of a hexagon and triangles as well. So the interlaced triangles, known in the Occident as King Solomon's seal or star, it was called in India the seal of Vishnu. The interlaced triangles signify the bipolarity in nature, spirit, and matter, or male and female. The apex of the white triangle represents the divine monad, the apex of the dark triangle, the manifested worlds. The upward triangle suggests spirit, consciousness, and concealed wisdom, which are mirrored in the downward pointing triangle representing matter, receptive space, manifestation, or wisdom revealed. The sides of the dark triangle may stand or form color and substance, the three gunas, or fundamental qualities, and the creative, preserving, and destructive regenerative forces of the Hindu triad, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Together, the triangles represent the manifested universe evolved from the central point within the serpent circle of time and space. They also form the hexagon of 6 principles, cosmic and human, emanating from and synthesized by the central point. the seventh and highest self of any evolving being. Thus, they express the sevenfold structure of the universe. The central cross is the inner person, touching all things from the six sides to the six triangles. The 6 points of the star reach outward toward the serpent of eternity, growing and evolving through time. So, the next thing I'm going to be talking about is called Nations in Action, which leads its way up here and is led by Maria Zack. We can see that this connects to Christopher James Pritchard, also known as Christopher James from A Warrior Calls. So, Nations in Action, what it essentially calls for is government regulation and essentially giving the people a voice. And it says here that you've been deceived by your own government, buried beneath layers of greed, treachery, and propaganda, is an infrastructure, a shadow government created by powerful individuals who seek to control the world. This is not a conspiracy theory, this is very real, and Nations in Action is committed to exposing the truth. Okay, so I'm going to look at this diagram and show you why there's a lot of gatekeeping here, or perhaps people don't simply understand. So it says the head of the snake, leaders of the shadow government, and then it says the shadow government over here, deep state, and NGOs and political parties. So the reason why this is either gatekeeping or people just frankly don't understand in this organization is because it's fraternities that essentially are in every avenue of the system and are what essentially control it on every layer, whether we are talking about NGOs, politics, the intelligence community, any of that. This is layered in a very overly simplistic way that doesn't really explain anything, and it doesn't even make mention of the United Nations either, or Vatican-affiliated influence such as the Knights of Malta or the Jesuits. So that's essentially where Nations in Action is going. So I looked up the corporate registry, and I found Maria Zack's name here. We can see that this is actually registered in Florida. And Maria Zack, we're going to look at her background. It says she's the Chief Executive Officer at Quantum Solutions Software Incorporated. Maria Zack is tenacious and a visionary for what is needed to solve complex government and business problems. Mrs. Zack has decades of success aiding some of the largest globally successful corporations in government affairs, business counseling, and program creation. Her strategic mind and unique perspectives prepared her for today's most challenging issues. She's an inventor and serial entrepreneur. So, besides running Nations in Action, we can see that, or besides serving on the board of directors with Nations in Action, she also is part of several other organizations and has worked in governmental affairs. So she's part of she's a CEO of Quantum Solutions Software, so a tech-based company. Already went over Nations in Action. Something called the Strollo Group, business strategy and public affairs company. So it sounds like there's an influence on public policy or foreign affairs there. And then as well, Help You Build, which is an IT-based company as well. And she was a political director during the presidential campaign of Newt Gingrich as well. So the next organization we're going to talk about is The Myth is Canada, and as well Doug Force, but we can see that they're basically on two separate lines here. So The Myth is Canada leads its way around. We can see it's tied to Vlad Sobolev, and it goes around to Benita. And as well, The Myth is Canada has its own ties to Stanford and Sarah of Canadian Frontline Nurses. The Myth is Canada circles its way toward Kevin J. Johnson, which has his own connections once again, goes toward We Are All Essential, and is circling a different way toward Tanya Gaw. Looking at Doug Force over here, which comes from Kellyanne Wolf on this purple line, we can see that there is a tie to Wayne Peters and goes towards something called Nephilim Films, which is fairly strange. And he as well is linked to someone named Carla Wilczuk, who I'll also be talking about later on in the video, but one step at a time. So, The Myth is Canada. Basically, they kind of fit all of the bullet points for speaking about how Canada as a corporation has a de facto government and the Constitution not being ratified properly. And I'm going to go to Doug Force's LinkedIn over here, and it essentially promotes something called Looking Glass Media. He doesn't really talk about Myth is Canada so much on here. And this link over here, Task Force, it leads to Ethics Over Fear, which Ethics Over Fear we can see actually. Doug Force. Doug Force's name is over here, and we can follow this purple line down to Ethics Over Fear. So, moving forward, essentially Ethics Over Fear have a lot of ties to different organizations, essentially, that range from doctors, health workers, scientists, and policing-based groups, as we could see some of their allied organizations here, like Feds for Freedom. And then I'm going to move forward and talk about Nephilim Films very briefly. And I think, again, this is a very strange and demonic name, being that the Nephilim are, according to the Bible, they are what was spawned when Lucifer and the angels were kicked out of heaven and mated with the woman. They spawned the Nephilim. That's how that story of myth goes. So, Nephilim Films was created to enter the era of modern media, feature films, feature-length documentaries, TV series, web series, etc. And it mentions a list of contributors, D. Force. I don't know if that actually is referring to Doug Force directly or somebody else. And we have these other names as well attached to it. And what I've noticed is when you go under either Donate Here or Current Project, it essentially just has a link to The Myth is Canada. And essentially, it offers ways to donate to The Myth is Canada. So perhaps this is Nephilim Films is a way of actually funding The Myth is Canada. And we can see, being that he's tied to Wayne Peters of What's Up Canada, Wayne Peters also indirectly ties over to Phil Primo over here, who as well has been a real subject of controversy, especially on Maverick Multimedia, where he and his team have actually threatened Rick Walker with hacking him and this sort of thing. So, moving forward, I'm going to be talking about someone named Misty Wind Shingoose, Conrad R.C. Goodsir, and Kelly Lynn Lewis. And this all links through the JCCF, Bonita, and right back around from The Myth is Canada over here. So, Misty Wind, essentially we can see here that she is a self-described digital entrepreneur, so she can create websites, logos, and has a background in marketing from what I understand, and as well is a hairstylist with a specialty on dyeing hair silver from what I understand. And Conrad Goodsir, otherwise known as RC the Rapper, we can see that he's well acquainted with Chris Sky, and his manager is Kelly Lynn Lewis, who is one of the names on the list over here. You can see that they tie together over here. So, Conrad Goodsir, essentially, he ended up attending the Recording Institute of Technology at the Musicians Institute in Hollywood, California. And he was born in Edmonton, Alberta. And I think it's strange. He knows Chris Sky, evidently, here. So, Sunflower Life Official. This is the company or project of Kelly Lynn Lewis, as well as her lover here, David. And it essentially fits all the bullet points for what to describe as the New Age, with all of those terms used, such as 5D, humanity's divine plan, galactic-related stuff, the Great Awakening, all of these things, and you can check out some of the symbolism here. And they have the Sunflower Life Corporation over here, which I'll talk about very briefly. It says that it is the 5D anchor to all of Sunflower Life's operational output, and it says that consciousness is the new currency. Sounds a little bit creepy, if I'm being completely honest here. And Soul Scene Productions, I think they have some interesting symbolism over here, being that you see kind of like two anchors crossed together, and it looks kind of like a figure 8, or these look like two separate squares in and of themselves, and I've spoken enough about the number 4 and square symbolism throughout the course of my videos. So, the Sunflower Life Foundation, it's the not-for-profit arm of the corporation, and to align with New Earth protocols, we crowdfunded the majority of our projects and issue a first-of-its-kind project shareholder infrastructure, allowing you to vote in how certain aspects of the project is developed. New Earth projects funded and owned by us, the people. This also safeguards outside interests from corrupting the overall development of each project. So we can see here some very futuristic, tech-based looking things that you'd probably see in like the movie Avatar and E.T. over here, which is, again, creepy. There is no other way to describe it. And you have the quantum shareholder structure here as well. And this quantum financial business, I'm not sure if they're actually advocating for something of a relating to the blockchain or not. I'm a little bit unclear on that. So the next person I'm going to talk about is Carla Wilczuk, and I'm going to be talking about the ties that she has here, going to the Gathering Ranch, Carrie Weber Young, and Ascari Global, and then Carolot Acres as well. So, and she as well is tied to something called Dusana Health Sciences, Inc., which is tied to someone named Natasha Saddleback. Now, moving forward, Carla Wilczuk's LinkedIn over here. She definitely has quite the resume, as we'll be going over, and we'll see everything that she is tied to once this actually loads, taking its time. I serve people in a way that improves the quality of their lives. The legacy we create is for the greater good of all. And she is the business owner at Care A Lot International, as we can see here. This is Carla Wilczuk. Sorry for the slow wait time here. My computer was just lagging a little bit. So CEO of Care A Lot. And then she's listed as the Ruby Director, Lifetime Platinum Pacesetter of USANA Health Sciences. And as well part of something called Canagra Management Services, which producer associations, government, knowledge and systems for implementing knowledge to grow the bottom line of producers, government, that sort of a thing. Designed and taught seminars, courses, and also sold in support of the use of financial management software. USANA Health Services has a specific focus on cellular nutrition. So, Moving forward, this is Care-a-Lot Acres, and essentially what it is here, it says connect and collaborate with us to bring energy to your spirit as well as vision so that you can heal and expand fully, surrounded by nature as well as joyful, supportive souls. So they advocate for healthy living, and they practice yoga, skincare, and assisted healing, and that sort of a thing. Carrie Weber Young here. This is another name that's on the list. It says here that she's a vocal coach and public speaker, and she has or had a corporation called Umbrella for Life, which actually changed to The Gathering Ranch, which happens to be a wedding planning service. But Carrie Weber Young, here's what's strange. We can see this dotted line, this dashed line, and it moves right down to Chris Sky. So I don't know what the link is to Carrie Young and Chris Sky, but I do think it's worth pointing out. And then Ascari Global is Askira, actually. Some of the names that are on the list I've noticed happen to be misspelled, and I don't know if that's done intentionally or not. But it's a subscription-based company that offers personal development through a variety of online digital projects, or digital products, excuse me, and it aims to create a social lifestyle community of beyond 1 billion people around the world and provide them with best diversified knowledge available. Askira aims to become a global leader in the field of education, direct sales, and the network marketing industry. That's their logo, and it's based out in Dubai in the UAE. So I think that this is strange because in the list so far we've seen nations in action in the States, we've seen different networks all over Canada, and now we're looking at the UAE. So I'm not sure if it sounds to me, an assumption I'm going to make here is that the freedom movement is very much like a circuit, a worldwide circuit, because we can see there are certain groups, now for instance one that isn't on the list but Free Earth Alliance, which I covered in another video, happens to have ties in India, the US, and Canada, and Constitutional Conventions had actually done a presentation with them, as I point out in my We the People video. So this is the CEO of Askira. His name is John Sechtorres, and it says the company for the people with an ambitious project called Beyond 1 Billion, and he has had an interesting resume as well and has a background in sales and marketing and that sort of a thing. So the Ascari Global Bank System, you can read about this yourself, but Askira Global partners with US-based Codebreaker Technologies to introduce Bank System in UAE, a tool that helps companies understand consumer behavior efficiently and accurately. So it sounds like it's picking up on algorithms of what people like to browse and what people like to purchase, sell, and that sort of a thing. And this picks up on those algorithms. So, moving forward to talk about USANA Health Services, which is the cellular-based healing company, cellular-based nutrition company, I should say. So we can see that they have a variety of products ranging from skin care, cellular development, and that sort of a thing, vitamins. So it appears great at face value. However, I'm going to go look at the sustainability pamphlet over here. We're going to open this up large and go on the second part here. It says this report describes our project for the 2021 fiscal year ending January 1st, 2022. And the ESG issues, that's environmental, social, and governance issues, deemed important throughout comprehensive material assessment. All business operations worldwide are in scope of our governance and management approach and performance disclosures. Financial figures are in US dollars unless otherwise stated. And in preparing the report, the increased alignment with relevant reporting frameworks, including Global Supporting Initiative, standards, the social standards, the Sustainable Accounting Standards Board, and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So that's already more than enough to read right there. And then the last name I'll be talking about is Natasha Saddleback, who happens to be linked to USANA. So Natasha Saddleback is a First Nations woman, I believe, and she has a background in IT and is a health coach, a health and fitness coach from what I can see here, and she definitely looks fairly fit. So I think that this is a very strange paradigm looking at this whole thing here, because in some corners, well, we have sustainable development promotion here, and I know Phil has a background in IT, as he has said so himself actually on Maverick, and we have different media outlets, different policing related organizations, and medical and science, and lawyers all over the place. And we have a lot of marketing people as well as politicians here. We can see Maxime Bernier on the list as well, James Bowder and Sandra Bowder, and Pat King is in multiple locations as well. Fairly important individual, I guess, and we can see Diagolon and Jeremy McKenzie on this list as well. So a lot of these people definitely are to be questioned for sure, and especially as to why they're partnered with certain groups on this list. I've covered Unify the People as well as The Line in previous videos, and both of them actually are tied to something called ISED, the Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada, which is a sustainable development ministry of Canada led by Philip Francois Champagne and a few other ministers. I'll have to talk about that in another video, but all in all, I can't cover all the names on this list here, at least in one video. I'll be covering more in future videos, and please like, share, and comment, and please, by all means, post any information about any of these groups that you might have. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves.